everyone. Welcome to our first Virtual Caravan Class. We are in learning mode right now here, and so we are working on technology. This as our guest speaker joined us. Okay, I get the note that I am cutting out my. Bear with me here, folks. I apologize for this. Okay, let's, Carolyn, can you go ahead and turn on your video? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
Good to have you here, Carolyn. Carolyn is our guest speaker for this first virtual caravan class, and our topic is boondocking. I have gone to, personally, 3 of Carolyn's boondocking classes, and I can say that I've learned something every single time, even though I'm an experienced boondocker myself. So with that, I want to welcome you all here. Carolyn, please take it away, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue Ann and team, Casey and Alicia and everyone, for inviting me to do this. This is one of my favorite topics because toppings, it can also be a topping, because I love boondocking. And okay, let me see. Have we jumped right in? Are we ready to go? So when you think of boondocking, what comes to mind for you? I'm assuming that we have some newbies here, maybe not so newbies, who maybe already have been doing some boondocking, or maybe you haven't started quite yet. But what comes to mind for you when you think about boondocking? Is it the sprawling vistas that you see in some of our videos? Is it the solitude? Is it the nature? Is it the beauty? Or is it something else? Well, when I started boondocking about 4 years ago, I left the San Francisco Bay Area and the rat race because I wanted to be closer to nature. And so I bought an old clunky RV and hit the road and started. Luckily, it was an old clunky RV because I started exploring some pretty crazy roads and finding some of the most amazing boondocking spots you can imagine. And I did that because I wanted to be closer to nature. I love being outdoors. I'm a hiker, I'm a backpacker, and after living in the San Francisco Bay Area for as long as I had been, I wanted to really just be closer to nature and enjoy some solitude and quiet. And that is exactly what I got. So today I'm going to teach you how you too can escape the rat race, find the most amazing free camping spots across the US. So sorry, I just wanted to check in really quickly with the chat to make sure you guys that I'm coming through okay, that you're hearing me, everybody's hearing me okay, I'm coming through okay, loud and clear, video's good. Okay, great. All right, so let's first talk about why would you want to boondock? Why would you want to boondock instead of going to campgrounds or RV parks? Not everybody is like me. Not everybody likes to be alone, completely like in the middle of nowhere. We're like literally like 360-degree view. I don't see another soul. That was the first couple of years of my RV life. It's changing a little bit the longer I'm on the road. I don't mind seeing people around quite so much anymore. I think after being in the Bay Area for so long, and many of you can probably relate to this, when you're surrounded by people all the time, I think we tend to kind of go opposite of what we're used to when we're making a big change. And I went from crazy, hectic Bay Area to just really wanting to be alone. And now that I've been alone for a few years, I'm like, okay, it's okay if I see somebody off in the distance. So why boondocking? Why do many of us choose to go boondocking instead of, staying in campgrounds or RV parks? Number one, I think for a lot of us is we do like our solitude, that we are kind of looking to kind of get away from a lot of the craziness, especially these days, right? I think another big reason a lot of people choose boondocking is to save money. Whether you're on a fixed income, you're older, you're disabled, or you just don't want to keep working crazy hours for the crazy overhead of mortgage and rent and the cost of living in the rat race, and you want to save money. You just want a simpler life, right? I think that a lot of people, can anybody relate to that? I know I don't have an audience in front of me, so I can't see your hands, but are you raising your hands? Who wants to just simplify their lives? I think that's one of the main reasons a lot of us do this. And freedom, right? How many rebels out there? and you kind of see this lifestyle as a little bit of a freedom from rules and freedom from the chains of society and all those things that tether us to stuff and keep us from doing what we really want to do. And I think lastly, the last reason many of us like boondocking, at least one of the main reasons I do, especially coming from the San Francisco Bay Area, where unless you are a millionaire, you don't have access to a lot of the best property. I love boondocking and my lifestyle because I get $1 million views absolutely free. Almost every day, $1 million views for free. So those are some of the reasons that I like to boondock, and from what I know of my nomad friends and a lot of newbies and a lot of people in my audience that I talk to, in case you don't know, I have a channel called Carolyn's RV Life, and I hear from people all the time who are just starting out or who want to start out, and those are some of the reasons they want to start boondocking. So today I'm going to teach you how to find all those amazing temporary homes, even if you have a bigger RV. I think there's a misconception for a lot of people that you can only go remote if you have a smaller vehicle, if you have a van, if you have a four-wheel drive. And anybody who has followed me for a while knows that that's not necessarily the case. You might get a little bumped and bruised sometimes if you're really, daring and go exploring, but that's okay. It's just stuff. So today, I'm going to cover 3 areas of boondocking before I get into the tips and tricks and how to do it, because I think it's important to lay the groundwork for boondocking. So number 1, I'm going to talk about what is boondocking, just to make sure we're all on the same page about what boondocking is. Number 2, I'm going to talk about the rules and best practices about boondocking, because it's really, really important if we want to make sure this lifestyle is sustainable for all of us and maybe even for future generations. It's really important that we know the rules and follow them to the best of our abilities. And finally, number 3, I'll talk about my tips, tricks, and tools of the trade for finding the best boondocking spots. Okay? Everything good so far? You happy? You excited? Okay. So first of all, what is boondocking? Most of you probably have an idea about what boondocking, but what does it really mean? It means going out on public lands and finding a place to camp. My puppy is eating my pillow. Okay, so it's about going out on public lands and finding a place to camp, basically, usually for free. I think most of the time, most of us think of boondocking as a free spot. There are no services. There's no garbage, there's no toilets, there's no shower, there's no electricity. It's just you and nature in whatever your vehicle of choice is, whether it's a van or a car or an RV or a bus or a schoolie. It's just you and nature plopped on public lands for as long as you're allowed and enjoying it. So it's dry camping. That means that when you go out into the public lands, you need to be fully self-contained, whatever that means for you. Self-contained usually means you have like a toilet and a shower on board, but I'm thinking self-contained means you have a way to dispose of all of your garbage and your waste. I mean, if you poop in a bucket, that's self-contained in my book. It's not to a lot of people, but if you have learned how to manage your waste, if you're not just stepping outside and pooping on the ground and leaving it there, then in my opinion, then that is self-contained in our world. So it's dry camping. You have to take all your supplies with you. You have to take all your water with you, and you have to take everything out. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And it's not the same. Boondocking is not the same as stealth camping. I think the difference between boondocking and stealth camping is usually something you do in civilization, in cities and towns, or en route. Free camping, amongst all the other people, all the sticks and bricks dwellers, and you're kind of flying under the radar. Boondocking really is legal, going out off grid as much as you can and camping. Officially, on every public lands website, boondocking is called dispersed camping. So you're not going to go on the National Forest website and look for boondocking. You're not going to find it. It's called dispersed camping. And sometimes these dispersed camping on public lands may or may not be developed campgrounds. So we'll talk about that more in a minute. But basically, This is the definition of boondocking. No services, dry camping. It's not stealth camping. It's legal camping on public lands, and officially it's called dispersed camping. Okay. So number 2, the rules of boondocking. So where can you boondock? Talking about public lands, well, what does that really mean? Well, national forests, BLM lands, which are Bureau of Land Management, mostly Southwest deserts, vast areas of desert that nobody, frankly, they're here because nobody else wants them, because they're dry, they're not buildable, or not, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not interesting to developers, although that seems to be changing, or at least not public lands, but some desert lands are sprawling, just like a lot of other areas. But Bureau of Land Management, state forests, you can often find dispersed camping or boondocking, free camping in state forests. Army Corps of Engineers, I saw those a lot east of the Mississippi. I think Florida, Tennessee, some of those states, I saw Army Corps of Engineers, so you might want to check that out if you're east of the Mississippi. Oftentimes wildlife refugee will have boondocking or dispersed camping, so you can check with those in your area. Fish and wildlife often have dispersed camping. Wilderness areas, if there are roads, oftentimes wilderness are just hiking, there aren't a lot of roads, but I have actually camped in wilderness areas where there was a road. Where was that? Kentucky. Ozarks, Missouri. And national recreation areas are other areas you might be able to find dispersed camping, as well as some utility districts in Florida. I remembered utility districts. So I only have a half hour, so I'm not going to get into detail about some of these, but just know that those are areas that you can look if you are looking for boondocking, especially east of the Mississippi. So boondocking, let's talk about that, east versus west. So yes, it is true that it is much more challenging to find free camping on public lands east of the Mississippi. Part of that reason is because it's just, I think, this is my opinion, I don't know that it's completely true, but I think it is. It was settled first, and so a lot of it is private land. And then later, when conservation efforts started, state and federal governments decided they wanted to start preserving some of that land, and so they started buying it, or people died or whatever, or they sold it back to the national government, whatever. So oftentimes what you find east of the Mississippi is you'll be in a national forest, and then all of a sudden you'll come across somebody living there or a little community. So it is a lot harder. There's not as much public land, national forest. There's almost no BLM land east of the Mississippi. But what I did find when I was traveling east is that there are designated areas and free campgrounds in some national forests. I had luck in horse camps. I had luck in, some state forests. Yeah, state forests. There were a couple state forests, I think, in Tennessee. And so you can look for that. Usually it's first come, first serve, no reservations, nothing online. You just show up and hope. That means that you have to plan ahead. Show up early. Don't show up on a Friday or a Saturday during holidays and summer. Boondocking on the west. There is a lot more open land in the west, a lot more BLM land, a lot more national forest. You can usually find dispersed camping on any designated forest or BLM road. So that means a lot of exploring, and you can contact your local BLM or national forest office for the rules and regulations about that particular district, especially in BLM too. BLM and national forests are broken down into districts for management, and it's best, especially if you are risk averse, it's best to check with a local office before you go do anything to make sure that you're following all the rules and guidelines. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Places you can't boondock. This is really important. National parks. There's no boondocking in national parks. I can't think of a single national park that you can boondock. National parks are highly regulated for preservation, and so you can only camp in designated areas. Indian reservations, those belong to the tribes that who own them. Do not camp on Indian reservation land without permission. Sometimes you can get permission. Private property, of course, you can't go boondocking on private property. and any place that's posted no camping. So you might even be in a national forest and think, oh, I'm in a national forest, I can camp here. Not if you see a no camping sign, and those are out there. So BLM rules. So remember 14, 25, 28 as a, I know that's stupid because that's not easy to remember at all, but generally, and this is a general assumption, and again, always check with the local offices for the local rules and regulations before you camp, but generally, you're allowed to camp in one place for 14 days before you need to move, okay? So you're allowed to stay in one place for 14 days before you need to move. Now, what does that mean? How far away do I need to move? Generally, again, generally, you need to move about 25 miles away. But again, you need to contact the local office just to make sure, especially in national forests. I remember in Northern California, it was like you just need to move to another national forest ranger district and you're fine. Or you need to move 100 miles away. So you need to check, but this is a general BLM rule across the country. You need to move, so you can be one place for 14 days, you move 25 miles away, and you can't come back to that original spot for 28 days, okay? So that means if you are on a budget and you don't want to travel a lot, Sadie is just killing my pillow. You don't want to travel a lot. That means you need 3 spots. You're in one spot for 14 days. You move to your second spot, 25 miles away for 14 days. You go to another spot, 25 miles from that, right, for 14 days. This always confuses me, and I always get pushback. And then after 28 days, you can go back to your original spot. Does that make sense? BLM land also has something called LTVAs, which are long-term visitor areas. What time are we opening it up for questions, guys? Just so that I know. I know you told me 15 minutes, but I don't know when that was. At 9:20. No way, really? At 9:25, we're opening it up for questions? Can we do 9:30? Since we had 5 minutes of admin stuff in the beginning? Okay, anyway. All right, so there are LTVAs, which are long-term visitor areas. You can pay for longer periods of time. So you pay an LTVA, it's relatively inexpensive, and you can, thank you, 9:30, and you can stay there for, I think they're year passes for the LTVAs. I've never stayed in an LTVA, and sorry, I probably should have looked it up just to let you know, but a lot of you know, LTVAs, you pay a nominal fee and you can stay there. You don't have to move after 14 days. And they usually have garbage and things like that. National forests. So the rules, that was BLM. Now the rules of national forest, about the same thing. So the national forest usually are a 14-day limit, but you have to check in national forest. I was at a couple spots in Florida, Ocala National Forest, where it was only 3 days. So generally you can stay for 14 days, but sometimes it's as few as 3 days. So you need to double check. And in national forest, the same as, well, in national forest, a lot of times you can't return for 21 days, or I have seen some places where you can't come back for 365 days. So you need to double check. I can't stress that enough. You need to double check with the office. Okay, so that's the national forest rules. I'm gonna this is going really fast. I'm used to doing this talk over 45 minutes or an hour. So the other thing to check with the national forest is to get an MVUM, which is a motor vehicle use map, and that'll show you every road within the national forest you are allowed to go on, you are allowed to camp on. And if there's ever any question about the legality of where you're camping and what you're doing, you could always refer to the MVUM, and you can make sure you're in the right. You can download those on any national forest website, or you can go to the office and get one. The last rule is leave no trace. Leave no trace. Leave no trace. I can't stress this enough. Camp, that means when you leave the camp, there is no sign that you were there except for tire tracks. Camp 200 miles from a water source. Use existing sites when possible. Use existing fire rings. If you are burying your poop, make sure you bury it 6 to 8 inches deep, 200 feet away from a water source, including a wash in the desert, because washes become water in the rainy season, and that stuff gets, flows down. So make sure if you're burying your poop, it's 6 to 8 inches deep and 200 feet away from a water source, and do not bury your toilet paper. No, please. There's so much debate about this. Yes, it is biodegradable, but it doesn't biodegrade before I'm out walking my dog and I see it, because animals dig it up. Nobody likes going for a walk and seeing somebody else's poopy toilet paper. RVs, do not dump your gray water. It's okay to little bits at a time. If you have a wash pan, just disperse it. Don't always put it in one spot. Disperse it so that little beads go everywhere. Don't use soap or chemicals near water sources. You don't want to pollute the water sources, even so-called natural soaps. The peppermint, the one, Bronner's, Dr. Bronner's. It's not all natural. The wildlife in the desert is not used to peppermint Dr. Bronner's, so do not use all natural soap near water sources. Of course, sometimes you're going to be using it in your dishwashing, and you're going to disperse that as much as possible, but whenever possible, try not to use anything if at all possible. Pack out all your garbage. Don't throw food waste out in the desert, because that feeds critters. Critters don't want to be fed our food because they become dependent on it and don't feed the wildlife. Okay, so I wanted to make sure I had plenty of time to talk about the fun stuff. So that's the groundwork, right? I think now everybody has an idea of what boondocking is, what the rules are, leave no trace, how you find the information you need. I think I've covered all that. Remember, if you have questions, I will answer any questions you have about that in the end. I know I went kind of fast. So finally, the tools, the tips, and the tricks for finding the best free camp spots in the country and New Zealand. I did it a little bit in New Zealand. But I look for 3 things when I am looking for a perfect boondocking spot. Because I still work, a cell signal is really important to me. So the 3 things that I need that make the perfect boondocking spot are the 3 S's: sun, solitude, signal. Okay, and how I find spots with these 3 things, I have a few different tools that I use, and I'm going to talk to you about those now. The first is technology. I think most people have a smartphone these days. If you don't, and you're still using atlases and maps, then there are Delorme and the other one, Moran McNally atlases, which are pretty good. They show the public lands pretty well, and you can go out and explore using the maps. I prefer technology. Freecampsites.net. Freecampsites.net is freecampsites.net is my favorite because there are user reviews. They're updated on a regular basis so that you can see, like, has somebody been there within the last 5 years? Wow, somebody was just there last week and they said there were a lot of bees, or there were a lot of ants, or there were a lot of noise, or there were a lot of partiers. I love freecampsites.net for that reason, that I can really get a feel for an area before I go there and make my plan accordingly, right? It's updated, it's comprehensive, and it's free. So that's why I like freecampsites.net. Campendium, I used a little bit in the beginning, and then I just gravitated toward freecampsites.net. It just felt like it had more, but I think I've been seeing some good stuff in Campendium lately, especially regarding COVID-19 on their website. So Campendium is another great resource. Same thing. They list places to boondock. Okay, let me talk about what you do. Is they're not apps, sorry, they're websites. I don't think either one of them has an app. You go to the website, you enter the location that you want to go to. So let's say I'm in Flagstaff, Arizona, and I know I'm heading toward Phoenix. And I'm like, where am I going to go? Where am I going to camp in Phoenix? I'll go to freecampsites.net. I'll enter Phoenix, and it'll give me all the free campsites and almost free campsites in that area. Then I can click on it and I can see a description. Is it, you know, can I get there? What's the road like? It'll usually say, I got there, I was there in a van, not suitable for large RVs. You need 4-wheel drive to get there. So all kinds of really valuable information from the website. And it also tells you oftentimes is if there's a cell signal. AT&T signal 4 bars, the Verizon signal 1 bar. So it's just a wealth of information, and it helps me plan when I'm going to the next town where I might find good boondocking. Another valuable resource that I use. So oftentimes I use free campsites as a guide. I don't like to go where everybody else goes, and because freecampsites.net and Campendium are used by so many people, a lot of the spots on freecampsites.net tend to get, some of them, not all of them, not a lot, but some of them either get crowded or you show up and there are people there. So I usually use those as a guide. If I know that a specific area has camping, then I know that that area is open to boondocking, and then I can go explore the general area. So that's how I just use it as a guide sometimes. And so with freecampsites.net, with freecampsites.net and Google Maps, the satellite view, I can often say, okay, the pin that Free Campsites gave me is right here. And I'll look at that on Google Maps, and then I'll expand it and go in and say, okay, does it look like there's other camping on other roads around the pin that freecampsites.net gave me? And then that tells me, just by looking at the satellite view on Google Maps, that means that I can go and explore other roads and find a more remote place. And when I'm doing that, I also, if the freecampsites.net review said that there's an internet or a cell signal, then I usually feel like I'm pretty good in the general area. But I do use a couple of, are you guys feeding me questions already? But sorry, squirrel, I shouldn't have looked at that. Sorry about that. There are a couple of cell tower location apps, and I can't remember what they are. I forgot to include this because I knew I was limited on time, so I didn't put too much in here. But just Google cell tower location apps, and there's a couple of them. FreeRoam is another app for finding campsites on public lands that you might be interested in. But you can also, Carolyn, Sue-Ann, sorry guys, one second. Sue-Ann, you will do that by voice or by text, feeding me the questions. Will we both be on screen again? Okay.
I will do it by voice.
Great, okay. Okay, so that's how I find spots. That's usually how I find spots with sun, solitude, and signal. And like I said, you can go on and Google cell tower location apps. Also, your cell phone carrier. Verizon, I have both Verizon and AT&T, and you can go to their website and you can see, it's not usually as detailed as the cell tower finder apps, but you can usually get a general idea of whether or not you have cell coverage there. The other two resources that I've been using are US Public Lands, and these are both apps, US Public Lands and FreeRoam, free, F-R-E-E-R-O-A-M. And what I like about these two apps is that a lot of the places that I find to camp are just me exploring and wandering around. And especially if I'm en route, if I'm traveling and I see a road and I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. I will pull up US Public Lands. FreeRoam is a new one I just started using, haven't really used it too much. But I will pull up one of these apps to see if that road that I want to go explore is public land. So that's extremely valuable if you're an explorer like me and you just like wandering roads. So, you know, if ever in doubt, it's always best to double check that you're on public land, not private property. before you boondock somewhere. And the U.S. Public Lands app or Free Roam are really great for that. The last resource before you during COVID times. Can you ask me that question after about COVID and Walmart? All right. So non-tech, if you're not a tech person and you don't have a oh, got it. I see. I shouldn't even be looking at that. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I'm getting sidetracked by the questions. And so the non-tech, again, just use maps and atlases if you don't have a cell phone, if you're not comfortable with technology. It's also probably a good idea to have maps and atlases around just in case you end up someplace and you don't have a cell signal. I could get into 15 minutes about how to do that, but we don't have time for that. But it's a good idea to carry maps and atlases or download maps and atlases on your phone when you have a cell signal in case you happen to drive out of a cell signal. All right, the last part of tips and tricks are best practices for finding the best boondocking spots. When you're traveling en route, you're getting to a new spot, make sure you get there early. There is nothing worse than trying to find a place navigating dirt roads, national forest roads, BLM roads, especially in the desert with sand and stuff. You don't want to be doing that after dark. And take it from me, you don't want to be doing it when you're tired. That's when you get stuck. I don't know how many times I've gotten stuck just because I'm tired and I'm just getting cranky and I'm like, I just want to be done. So I've learned I only like traveling a few hours a day. Once I get past 3 o'clock, I start turning off. And so it's a good idea to get there early and don't try to do this after dark or when you're tired. Explore on foot. When you get to a new spot, I find some of my best spots by not staying in the first spot I found. A lot of times I'll pull into a spot and just be like, okay, I'll just stay here for the night or maybe just coffee. And then I'll go explore on foot, especially if the road looks iffy. And just to see actually where I'm at right now. I ended up parking down the road because the road was getting kind of bad. And I was like, oh, but what's up the road? So I parked and went walking on foot and found a great spot. I'm like, yeah, my rig can make that. So do a lot of exploring on foot. If you're unsure, before you drive somewhere that you're unsure of, get out and explore it on foot. And be adventurous, be brave, be curious. Just go, but know your limits. Go beyond the crowds. Some of my best camping spots are just going a quarter of a mile past the crowds. And I find solitude and beauty and quiet. Another tip is to visit the local ranger station, whether it's BLM or National Forest. They know the best spots. They know their lands. So you can always go into a local ranger station and ask them. You can always ask the locals, although sometimes locals don't really quite get like boondocking and they'll give you campgrounds, but sometimes you can find some of the best spots by locals. And again, just explore. Go further. Go beyond the crowds. Go where the crowds don't go. But don't go so far. My rule of thumb when I'm exploring roads is to, oh, I'm sorry, I'm way over. Okay, is to not go further than you can back up. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Can I back out of here when you're exploring roads? And finally, don't settle. Don't settle. Don't say, this is good enough. Don't be afraid to push the bar a little bit. Be safe, be cautious, know what you're getting into, explore on foot, but don't be afraid to kind of push it once in a while. In the beginning, you might, just expect to get stuck a lot, but, or not, just explore more on foot. And finally, my last tip before we open it up for questions is always have a plan B. No matter what, you need to be flexible. If this lifestyle is about anything, it's about being flexible and being able to think on your feet and change your mind or change your plans like that. So always have a plan B and always have a plan C. All right, so I hope that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, and I hope you found that interesting, and I'd love to hear from you now and hear your questions.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. That was great. A lot of information. And in fact, I'm going to be just asking the questions as they were submitted in the same order. And the first one is a question that isn't about boondocking, but about the presentation. Julie
Oh,
V is asking that, or saying that she would love some written notes. She just can't write fast enough. Is that something that you might be able to provide? Just an outline of your talking points?
so this video, actually, this talk is on my channel.
There you go.
So I did this presentation at RTR a couple years ago, and it's on my channel in 2 parts. So you can go back and you can watch it and take all the notes you want, and stop it and pause it and slow. And there's a lot more comprehensive information because I think it was an hour, and I can provide that link somehow, Sue Ann.
Yes, we're planning we'll plan to provide that link. People can find your channel by typing in Carolyn's RV Life on YouTube, and it'll
Yeah,
come up.
yeah, or Carolyn'sRVLife.tv too. That'll
Okay.
take you directly to my channel. And if you
Excellent.
just go to my channel and search boondocking, I don't know, I'll provide a link. I think that's the best way. That way you have more comprehensive information and you can take the notes that are relevant to you.
Yes, and we will be putting this specific talk up on the HOWA YouTube channel as well.
Okay.
So we'll have all kinds of resources for you that you can watch and rewind and rewatch.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, Rob says that he just wanted to mention that in addition to freecampsites.net and Compendium, he uses Overlander. That was the statement.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. What was that?
He uses Overlander as another resource.
Okay, great.
Okay. And he wants to know if you have a way to find best cell tower locations.
So I do. You know what? There's a website. I don't think I use the app. There's literally a website that I use, and it might even be like Cell Tower Finder, and it actually gives you a map. You enter your location, and it'll give you a map and show you where the cell towers are in that area that you're in. And it can be very helpful when trying to find boondocking. But in general, and I learned this from Bob when I first started, in general, anything, like if you're in a mountainous area, anything on the mountain on the side of an interstate or on the side of a city or a town is going to have a better cell signal than anything in a valley or anything on the other side of that mountain. So those are a couple of rules too, even without technology or sources of locating towers, that have really helped me as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Okay, Carmen asks, well, she first says, I cannot drive long distances at one time. After an hour or two, I get tired. Can I still do boondocking or RVing? I have wanted this always. Is it too late?
I think you can do it. That means you're going to do it differently than I do it. That means if you can only drive an hour or 2 hours at a time, when you are going from point A to point B boondocking, you might have to stay at Walmart. So you drive 2 hours, you go stay at a Walmart, or or you don't even have to stay at a Walmart. You go find a nice park in a nice city to hang out at for the day and explore the town, and then go to just sleep at Walmart or just sleep at the Cracker Barrel or the truck stop. But there are many places where you probably can go in 1 hour or 2 hours from one boondocking spot to the next, but there are going to be a lot of places where you probably can't. So just know that you might have to do it differently, but I think you can do it. What do you think, Sue Ann?
Oh, very definitely. Very definitely. Just take some planning. Just instead of driving 5 hours, you'll drive 2 hours or whatever you can do. Yes. Okay. Lourdes Castillo, how can we contact someone like Carolyn to receive help? I'm retiring soon and want to start being a nomad. I think this is another situation where your YouTube channel is going to be a great resource.
Yeah. I have 400 videos on my YouTube channel, everything from how to find boondocking to how to get mail to how to the technology that I use to stay connected, to work, to how to empty my black tanks. I did a whole video even about how to empty black tanks, how I shop, how I cook, and the emotional stuff, you know, the how I deal with breakdowns real time on the road, and how I deal with the loss of a dog and loss of another dog. I mean, everything that you can encounter. I've recorded my life as an RVer for 3.5 years. So anything that you would want to know is on my channel. There's also a playlist called 5-minute videos. If you don't want to spend, you know, I think there's probably like a year's worth of content now of watching, but there's 5-minute videos. There's a playlist about that, which is just short information that every boondocker or every RVer or van lifer would find valuable or necessary. There's also a playlist called Thinking About RV Life, Start Here. And it starts with everything on how to choose the right vehicle to live in, to planning, to a lot of really relevant information. If you're just looking for data and information and not necessarily the stories and the travels, that would be a good place to start. And again, I can provide links to all of this if Sue Ann has a way to post them.
Yeah, we'll get it out to folks at the very least by email. Because we have all of our attendees' contact information. I will also say that for somebody who is new to the lifestyle, once this social distancing is over, we can gather again. Homes on Wheels Alliance has what we call caravans, and it's a great way to camp with other people and be more comfortable as you learn the lifestyle. There's no classes per se, but you sit around the campfire and you just learn things. You can ask questions. And the way to sign up for that is the same way that you signed up for this class. You go to Meetup, and once those are offered, they'll be listed there. Okay, from Deidre, how difficult was it during this COVID time to get dump stations and water fills?
Where I am, not difficult at all. I have a sorry, my puppy. Sorry. It's like a baby. It really is. Come here. So where I'm at, I have a local RV park, which is also a residential. People live there all year round. So, and that's where I go to dump and get water, and they're open all the time. Haven't had a problem at all. And I think I said this in a recent video that I'm trying to think. I think RV parks, gas stations have water and dump stations, and they're still open. They're not closing. And I think in a lot of areas, RV parks, at least the residential ones, are considered necessary, so they're staying open. So I've not had a problem at all.
Okay.
I'm not traveling a lot. I'm not traveling either. I've been in one spot for way too long. I'm really ready to go. But so I know that in this one spot, it hasn't been an issue.
Okay. Sue Wise, do you use a cell booster or external antenna for reception?
I've had 2 Wii boosts and they've both been crap. So no. I was thinking the other day, I'm in a spot that I don't have the greatest cell signal, and I was thinking actually my AT&T is fine. I'm streaming, but I have virtually no Verizon. And I know, I think Bob on CheapRVLiving.com has talked about a new one that he rants about, and I thought about investing in a new one. But frankly, you know, you have to go climb up on the roof and put it up, and it's usually not worth the hassle. It's really hard these days, to be honest with you. Maybe it's not that hard to go someplace that doesn't have a cell signal.
Yeah, I think it really depends on obviously where you're at, what part of the country, and
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Would you address boondocking while traveling? This is from Ron. Walmarts, truck stops while en route in states before you get to public land during this time of COVID-19. So any tips or tricks?
I've really been encouraging people to stay. not travel, to shelter in place, if you can, because I think the more exposure we have to other people, the more this virus is going to spread. If you have to travel and you are going en route and you're, I don't know, you're staying at Walmart, just keep your social distance, wash your hands a lot, wear a mask. I think that's the best advice out there. Yeah, there is a real concern that if you're in an area where there's a lot of coronavirus cases and you're traveling to smaller towns, you could be carrying that virus to a smaller town that doesn't have it. So I've been in one spot for 3 months. It's killing me. I want to go. I'm starting to get really, really, really antsy, but I have not been feeling that well myself and kind of worried about what I might have, but also just, I'm mindful about it. I don't want to be contributing to something that is, detrimental to our society. Right. That's just my take. So that's just my opinion.
And I think that's what he was asking. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. You scroll down here. So this is from Katie. What states and locations offer good boondocking during the hot summer months without air conditioning?
Good question.
Good question.
In my experience, well, you know what? It's not necessarily a state as it is elevation. Heat is on the low for every. Okay, let me back up. For every 1,000 feet you climb, it gets 3 degrees cooler, a little over 3 degrees. So you can be, in Arizona, and there are spots in southern Arizona that are, I think, 7,000, right where the land is, 7,000, 8,000 feet. So while it might be 120 degrees in Phoenix, which is at 0, 7 times 3, that's 21 degrees. That's 21 degrees cooler at 7,000 feet. So it's not necessarily a state. It's where you are in elevation. Of course, in certain states, you're going to have more higher elevation areas than you are. I know Colorado is a really good one. There's a lot of high elevation in Colorado. California, although it's crowded, not a lot of boondocking, but Northern California, you can find boondocking. A couple of my favorite states the last couple of years, Oregon, Washington, I've spent a lot of time in. And that's kind of like all the experience. Nevada, even, you can find some really high elevations in Nevada that, and again, think about that. If you're looking for someplace that's 7,000 feet and it's 100 degrees in the valley, that's 80 degrees at 7,000 feet. So that's a big difference. Sue Ann, do you have any others? Alaska, go to Alaska.
If you don't mind the mosquitoes.
Yeah, no, the bird mosquitoes.
The birds. Yes. Yeah, the elevation is the key. Right on. Yeah. Okay, Margie Callahan asked, where did you say to double check what we find on U.S. public lands and free roam?
I didn't.
Okay.
There isn't anything really to double check, unless you have a map. You could look at a map.
I did hear you say at one point that when you go to a location, double check your assumptions about the rules with the local office.
Yes.
So if you're in BLM land, you go to the field office for BLM. If you're on National Forest land, you go to the ranger's office. It doesn't have to be in person. It can be a phone call.
Exactly. Yeah. Good point. Good point.
Yeah. I think that might be what she was referencing.
Yeah. You just want to, number one, no matter where you go, you want to maybe this is what I said. If you go down a road, you want to double check that you're on public land and not private property. Maybe that was also what you were talking about. And you do that by using the U.S. Public Lands app. So you turn on, if you're on a road and you're like, oh, I want to camp here, this is awesome, but I'm not sure. You can turn on the Public Lands app, and it should know your location if your location is on your phone. And there are layers on the app that'll tell you, it'll be green if it's National Forest, orange if it's BLM, and it'll tell you if it's white, it's probably private. So there's that. And then like Sue Ann said, the other part of that is don't assume when you go onto a national forest or a BLM land, a new one, don't assume that you can stay there for 14 days, you know, and that you're in a legal camping spot, especially in national forest. You always want to double check with the office. Right? Yes.
Okay. Hi, Sadie. Okay, Mark just has a statement. He wanted to let folks know that truck stops have directories for each of their brands. So if you, they often have apps that you can go to and find out the closest truck stop to your location.
Excuse me, I'll be right back. Go ahead and ask another question. I'm listening, but I need to distract my dog.
Okay. Okay, let me scroll down here. Just bear with me. Harry says, I will have a dog as my traveling companion. Will it be difficult keeping him happy and healthy on the road? I don't want him to die. As you deal with Sadie.
Okay, so you want to keep him healthy and happy on the road and you don't want him to die?
Yes.
So my dog died because he was old. And I think as long as you feed him and don't leave him in a 120-degree vehicle when you're going to the movies or playing golf, I think your dog will be very happy and healthy. When I just recently adopted Sadie, my concern had always been, because I had heard that shelters and stuff like that don't adopt dogs to people who live in RVs. But when I filled out 2 applications and they were excited. They were totally excited about my lifestyle and thought it would be perfect for my active dog. So, you know, I mean, I have with Capone was with me the first couple of years of RV life. We had one vet that was his home vet that, you know, if he needed anything, you know, shots and everything, we would go there. But in between, we would just go to a vet in Tennessee. If we needed to see a vet in Tennessee or in Yukon Territory, I needed to take him to the vet up there, and he just went to the vet. So as long as you keep up with their health and their shots and feeding them and exercising them and keeping them stimulated mentally and physically and loving them and cuddling with them. And I mean, I think this is a great lifestyle for dogs.
Me too. Very good.
And people. And people.
And people. Okay, Margie Callahan. She says, great information, Carolyn. Thanks, Carolyn. How and where do we get the MVUM maps?
You can go to the National Forest website, any national forest, and in every national forest website there is a search bar, and just search motor vehicle use map or MVUM. I think they even call them MVUM, or just Google. I think there might be a website. Just Google MVUM National Forest, and you'll find all the information you need. But I think for national forest specific, it's best just to go to the national forest that you're in or that you want to visit and look on that website. Or you can go into the field office and get a paper copy if you want.
Good information. Yeah, those maps are typically, my experience with them is they're on fairly inexpensive paper. So I'll try to access them online digitally.
Yeah.
They don't take up space that way, and they last a lot longer.
Save a tree.
Okay, Jeff Washburn, this is not a question, but I think it's good information. He says it's great. He's been a CheapRVLiving channel viewer, and on Patreon supported us, and didn't know about that HOWA had a YouTube channel, and that he just subscribed. So y'all, go find the Homes on Wheels Alliance YouTube channel and subscribe to it. Boy, that would be great to have y'all there.
Now that he mentions it, I don't think I knew that either.
Yeah, we're just starting. We have some classes on there from the RTR and some stories, but we're doing baby steps with YouTube. Okay. Margie Callahan asked, any opinions about using Visible since I am stuck with T-Mobile?
I don't know what Visible is.
Do you think she might be talking about Verizon? Visible. I don't know what it is either.
If she's talking about Verizon, any opinions about using? Well, she's stuck with T. No, I don't know what that means. Yes, it's a Verizon. Oh, it's a Verizon extender. I don't know what that means.
Oh, okay. Thanks for that clarification, Margie. Yeah, we're unfamiliar with that. So Rob asks, which overlays do you use on your mapping applications?
So the mapping application that I use is U.S. Public Lands, and it comes with just a public lands like National Forest, BLM, Conservation Corps. So I just use whatever overlays are on the apps to find out whether I'm on public land. I'm not that familiar. I'm not that tech savvy. Like it's like, okay, is it green? Is it orange? Okay, good. If it's white, nope, I gotta go. I mean, that's about the extent of my using it. I don't dive too deep.
For that particular program, green is National Forest and orange is BLM. So green and orange are good. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Very good. Well, we are out of time, Carolyn. I just want to say thank you so much for the information that you provided and the answers to the questions. Thank you to everybody that's attended. It's a pleasure to have you here. I'm glad that this was our first virtual caravan class. And huge thank you for the HOWA staff and CheapRVLiving staff, Phyllis, Casey, Alicia. This is truly a team effort, even though it's just Carolyn and I on the screen. Just a huge amount of work went into making this happen.
Yeah.
So
thank you all for being here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we are going to open the chat up so that the attendees, the participants can chat with each other now. So you all can talk about boondocking or where you're at right now in your life. The HOWA staff will stick around, and Carolyn, I'd like you to invite you to stick around for the next half an hour and chat as well if you are available. So with that, we're going to call it good and sign off.
Bye.
Safe travels, everybody.
Be safe.
Bye-bye.
Be happy. Be free. Be kind. Bye.